Hello, welcome to another Album of Record podcast. I'm Craig, joined as always by Andrew. We are going to talk about a hodgepodge of items. You can find everything that we do at albumofrecord.com. We are all over YouTube. You might be watching this on YouTube, which is great. How's it going, Andrew?
I am bitterly depressed about missing out on the Los Campesinos show on Sunday. If anybody can tell, my voice is a little raspy and stuffy. I've got yet another cold that just keeps going around everywhere, it seems like. It seems like so many people in our office are sick and in my family are sick. It was unavoidable, and of course it happened right as I had tickets to go see Los Campesinos, like 10 minutes from my house. I was super looking forward to it, but when that night came, I was in no mood for standing in a crowded club
You
dealing
wouldn't
with
have
people.
enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah,
If these
but
things happen, and sometimes as a firmly middle-aged human, you have to say no.
that's the thing too. Like, I feel like when I was younger, there was much more of a sense of power through it, Powering
Yeah.
through it is stupid. When you get into your 40s, let me just tell you, anybody who's younger, when you get into your 40s, be careful about what you power through, because there tends to be a price you pay on the opposite side of whatever that endeavor is.
There's something else to that, because for me in my teenage years and even into my 20s, I had this horrible sense of FOMO that if I didn't go to this show, that it was a one-time deal. I would never get a chance to see this performance again. It would never live on. And I think two factors have impacted me to change my mind about that to some degree, where I'm willing to say no from time to time now, where I never would have before. It's number one, I've seen so many bands, and even Los Campesinos in particular, I've seen them 4 or 5 times now. And so I feel like I've been there and done that. But also, because of YouTube and because of live videos, I don't feel the same sense of this will never happen again. It'll be lost to history and it won't be in my memory if I don't get to see it, because I just I don't feel quite the same level of pressure that I used to feel.
I think that's a fair point, especially the YouTube part. Like, I think we've talked about this before, but you can look up so many different shows. I was watching a couple different videos of, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I was watching a couple different videos of Turnstile's performance at the Tied Down Fest in Detroit over the weekend. And I mean, it's great. Like, I mean, it's not exactly the same as being there, but it sure feels close to it. So maybe I'll see if I can find some videos from I haven't looked it up yet to see if there's any good Los Campesinos ones from the Columbus show, but I can find ones to watch, but I have never seen them live, so I was really looking forward to it. Plus, they're playing, obviously, a lot of stuff from All Hell, one of both of our favorite albums of last year. And so, it's
It's so
disappointing,
good that
but
you could have told me it was from 2023, because it just feels like it's been with us that long.
I know, but it was just last year.
I know.
So, but yeah, their set list was like, as somebody who loves All Hell and then Romance is Boring is my second favorite album. Those are the two albums they're playing the most songs from too. So it's a very, very friendly set list for what I wanted to see. But, it is what it is. Like I said, like, I know if I would have gone to that show, it would have extended this illness by days, and it just wasn't worth it to me.
So you did mention Turnstile was in Michigan, which leads us into This Week in Turnstile. Andrew, what do you
This
got
Week in
for
Turnstile.
this Week in Turnstile?
So I don't think we mentioned that we didn't record an episode last week. We have not missed very many weeks with this show, but that was like the onset of this illness, and I could barely talk. There was no way I could record an episode, and we were both busy with life stuff, anyways. But
the Memorial Day hangover is real. It is just real, and not a literal hangover, but just it's one of those holiday weekends. And yes, there's a reason for the holiday. I'm not downplaying it. I know I just rolled my eyes, despite the fact that I also said I wasn't downplaying it, but it's one of those holiday weekends that's not very relaxing, because there's just so much to do and you're busy all the time, or at least I am.
Yeah.
And so you come out of that holiday weekend going, I need a vacation from my vacation.
Yep. That's the classic one. But so we didn't have an episode. So we technically have 2 weeks of This Week in Turnstile, but I'll keep it short. We've got, and I should point out too, this is actually the final proper This Week in Turnstile, because actually people who are listening to this episode, the album's out. Go check it out. Turnstile, Never Enough. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. I'm not an ad. We are not sponsored by Turnstile,
Yet.
but I'm just so beyond stoked for this album. And yeah, if you're hearing this, it's actually out. But as we're recording it, it's not out. So this will be the final installment of This Week in Turnstile, because I don't think, like, we're going to talk about the album in next week's episode, but
What
I
do
don't
you
know if,
think we're going to talk about next week, Andrew?
yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what the main topic is going to be. But, so I don't think that counts as a This Week in Turnstile segment. So, anyways, with that being said, let me get to a couple things. One, we haven't actually talked about this, but for anybody who's interested, the Turnstile is putting out a feature film that is a companion to this album. It is so all these music videos we've seen so far are segments of the actual feature film that Brendan and Pat created together to go along with this album. And it's debuting at the Tribeca Film Festival, actually. They submitted it before it was even done. They just sent a couple samples and it actually got in. So people can check out the full video there. It's also debuting in theaters. So if you want to check your local listings, I think it's Thursday that it's coming out. You could actually find it at some local theaters. I'm actually not doing it. I did it for the Pearl Jam Dark Matter one. This one, the only reason I'm not doing it is, well, twofold. One, I'm really busy right now. But second of all, just being one day before, like, I can wait and check out the album. I'll check out the movie eventually for sure. But just some kind of cool that they're doing, and I think it just speaks to what I'm anticipating out of this album, that it is really intended to be one piece of music, a full album, not 14 different songs. And I think the fact that they wanted to tie these videos together and make a full-length movie out of it kind of speaks to it. The other thing I'll mention, and it's going to be a couple days late by the time you hear this, but Turnstile is performing on Jimmy Fallon tonight. As of the day we're recording this. And they just posted on their Instagram that they're premiering new music tonight. So I think we're going to hear. So I had hypothesized that we were going to get one more single yet. And it turns out it looks like maybe I was wrong, unless they drop it tomorrow after debuting it tonight. Maybe they'll drop it tomorrow. But anyways, they're going to be at least teasing something new, I think, tonight on Jimmy Fallon. So if you missed it, go ahead and check that out. I'm sure it's on YouTube and all the places you find that. So,
And I checked once again. The stupid record is not leaked, man.
yeah. I mean, we live in a different time, man.
It's not
The
fair.
reviews are out, by the way. Like the review stream is out. I've seen NME, Rang, Brooklyn Vegan, couple others.
They
And
mentioned
let
it
me
on
just
IndieCast too.
Yep. Let me just say, and Stereo Gum said premature evaluation is coming this week yet for it too. My guess is we'll get that tomorrow as well. All I'll say about these is the reviews have done nothing to slow down my anticipation for this album. I'm not going to say much more about it yet. We'll wait. I'll listen to it and we'll talk about it more next week. So
Yeah.
that's This Week in Turnstile. I'm curious, Craig, because I know you're not quite the same level of fan as I am, but what's your anticipation for this album right now? Like, are you genuinely excited for it? Are you more curious? Kind of, what's your thoughts on it?
I'm genuinely excited because you're excited. Like I've caught the hype wave this time. For me, the last Turnstile record was post facto. You told me that I needed to love it after it came out, and I didn't have a chance to even anticipate it. And there's no way that I would say that I liked it as much as you did. I do think it's phenomenal,
Yeah.
but I'm not even approaching your level. Like, I'd give it an 8 or a 9 in my world, but these pre-release singles for the new record have really got me intrigued. So
Yeah.
I have the feeling that this is going to send me back into their catalog in ways that the previous record didn't quite do. I think I was also distracted by other things, other records when the last record came out.
I'm really hoping that we have an inverse foxing situation where, you kind of brought me into the foxing world and it took me a little bit longer to fully dive in. But then their new album really sent me back and really appreciating the old albums in a way I never did before. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe this Turnstile album can do the same thing for you, because let me tell you, Like Nonstop Feeling, like that album, holy shit. Like the riffs on that album. And I have not talked to you about this. I've been thinking about like at what point do I want to really get you to really focus on that album. But like there's elements on that album that sound like Rage Against the Machine that I know you're gonna like.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling you're gonna love Nonstop Feeling, but it's not the right time right now. You got to get through Never Enough, and we'll see. Maybe the album's gonna be a huge disappointment, and maybe next week we'll talk about how much it didn't do for us what we thought it was gonna do. But I'll just say based on the things I've been reading, and just like I'm in for this band. Like you just get to this point with certain bands that you just inherently trust that you would be pretty surprised if they did something that you didn't connect with. And there was an interview I read today, a new one with Brendan Yates, the singer, and I wish I could remember what outlet it was for. I've read so much over these last couple weeks, but he talked about the fact that he's like kind of talking a little bit about the like all the different influences and genres and sounds and styles and textures that they have. And he made the point that he's like, we don't make any album. We've never made an album with a quota in our head. Like, okay, we have to have this many songs that sound like this and so many songs that satisfy these fans. He said, we've just always made what felt right to us, what we were excited to do. And he said,
Right.
maybe that's why some people who you would expect would love our band don't, and other people who maybe don't like hardcore music as much like our band. And I think that there's something interesting to that. And I think that like they've hit a point where they've done enough with all of their albums that I just feel like I inherently trust that whatever direction they
Yeah.
go, I'm going to connect with it, I bet. I would be so shocked if I don't. But what a year for me, man. Getting Turnstile and Deaf Heaven in the same year. And that's going to be really an interesting battle to see which album I like more. I'll be very curious to see how that goes.
So I went and looked back at 2021. And do you remember what finished after Turnstile was number 1 for you that year? Do you remember what finished in the top 5?
What finished in the top 5? T1. Is this a segue?
No, not exactly, but kind of. I
Oh,
mean,
okay. Because
it
I would have
certainly.
said Home is Where, maybe.
You refused to rank that one because it was an EP.
That okay. That was not the Whaler. That was the
I Became Birds.
I Became Birds. Yeah.
I had
Okay.
it number 4, but you're very strict in your rules. You will not put an
I know.
EP in your top 5. Number 2 for you was Infinite Granite by Deaf Heaven.
Oh wow.
So you
So it's
2021,
happened before. I can't believe I forgot that. Yeah.
and then Ice Age, The World is a Beautiful Place, Illusory Walls, which, we're going to talk about them briefly today, but we're first, whenever you talk about Turnstile and hardcore, you got to talk about crowd head walking and
Yeah. Crowd killing, spin
kung fu
kicking.
moves.
Yeah.
So why are we talking about
Hardcore
spin kicking?
dancing.
You got to set this one up.
Sure. Well, so the reason we're really talking about this is that a video went viral, and I'm using air quotes for anybody
In
who
our
can't
world.
see. Viral in our world. I'm sure this is not like a thing most people in the world are aware of, but in the indie music scene and hardcore scenes. So at Tide Down Fest over the weekend in Detroit, both of the Young brothers were there with various different bands that they play in. They did so for people who don't know, Colin Young and Taylor Young are two of the founding members of Twitching Tongues, and they performed as what they call Twitch Fits, where they do this like every Halloween. They play Misfits covers, and Colin's got his face painted like the Misfits cover and all that, and so they did that. Regional Justice Center was there, which Taylor Young plays guitars in. Taylor Young has produced like so many like huge hardcore albums. Like these guys are just very well known. But during one of Taylor's bands that
But
was
aren't they
playing,
also from a certain podcast?
oh yeah, I should mention that too. And Colin is one of the hosts of the Hard Lore podcast,
Which is a
one of
huge
my
YouTube
absolute
channel.
favorite music podcast for sure. So good shout. I can't believe I forgot to say that. So during Taylor Young's band's performance, Colin Young decided to do a little hardcore dancing and went into a spin kick. And as he did the reverse turnaround on the spin kick, he caught another fan right in the face with it and knocked the fan to the ground. And
straight out of the UFC.
yeah, I mean, it was a pretty brutal hit for sure. There were other video clips that showed earlier in this set, Colin took a punch to the face from a fan who was going around the edge of the pit and smoked him in the face. And like I get it, like this is a part of the hardcore scene, especially. But I mean, moshing is in so many different genres and forms. Like I remember as a kid going to like a Christian music festival and like there'd be like ska bands playing and kids would be moshing. I talked about the fact Primus had crazy pits, like people moshing. So this kind of thing happens.
But
Like if you
mosh
go,
pits, in my experience, were always a bunch of people kind of banging into each other and jumping
well,
around, and not so much punching, elbowing, spinning back fists, and spin kicks and whatnot.
so I was going to get to that. So moshing, yeah, to your point exactly. Traditionally, it was a lot of just jumping around, maybe some shoving. You shove some people. They've called them push pits. And it's mostly harmless fun. Metal shows would have things that they would do to up the ante a little bit. You'd have circle pits, which could sometimes be a little more, kind of depends on the circle pit. Some of them were actually lighter than a mosh pit because you're just running
Yeah.
in a circle basically. But some of the ones where you get people throwing down inside the circle, like things like that could happen. But then you have wall of death,
Yep.
in metal shows
So let me
especially, and
explain the
there's
wall of death. So the wall
yeah,
of death is usually organized by the singer or the screamer on
yeah.
stage, and they ask the audience to part the seas from left to right and leave a giant gap in the middle. And usually it corresponds to some kind of a breakdown or whatever in the music. And then when the music hits, the two sides come blasting to the center in like a scene out of two armies meeting in
It's
Lord of the
like Braveheart.
Rings or
Braveheart.
Braveheart. Yeah.
It looks awesome. I've
These are
never
I've never been in a wall of
I've
death.
never been in a wall of death, but they look awesome. Like
And it
not
actually should be
necessarily
called
awesome to be in.
walls of death
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
two
true.
walls, but
But just when you
alas.
see some of these like overhead shots, of these just sea of people colliding into each other, like it looks cool. I'm not going to lie. But again, every single person who parts the seas knows what they're signing up for and what they're getting into. Now, hardcore music has a few different things going on. You have the hardcore dancing, and this would be a combination of the two-step and also the if you've ever seen people where they're doing the swinging the arms around and like clearing people out, that's hardcore dancing. Then you have the spin kick, and the spin kick is exactly what it sounds like. It's usually you see people do it as a two-step kick. You do the one kick. I can't demonstrate while I'm sitting down, but you bring your front leg over, you reverse it around, and you swing the back leg around. And they're not set out to incite violence on people, but if you hit somebody, that's just part of the show. Like that's the way it's supposed to go. And you'll see this a fair amount, and especially the heavier hardcore, the ones that
Yeah.
lean a little bit more into the metal side than the punk side, I would say. Like I don't typically see at like a Turnstile show, for example, you don't see a ton of hardcore dancing and spin kicking. That tends to be more your traditional moshing and stage diving, obviously. Stage diving
Head
being a
walking.
huge part of it, and head walking, yeah. Now, all of these things are more or less considered part of the show. Like if you go to a hardcore show, you have to understand. You just have to. Like there's going to be people doing spin kicks and hardcore dancing. Like you have to know that.
Especially the
But
closer you get to the stage.
right, correct. Now, generally speaking, when you make contact with somebody, if you knock them down, the etiquette is you're supposed to help them up. That was the only thing I was a little surprised Colin didn't do. He didn't appear to even react to hitting the guy. I don't know if he somehow didn't realize. I don't know
Yeah.
how you wouldn't realize when you hit somebody that hard, there but there is a sort of gray area thing here, and that's what people call crowd killing. And crowd killing is this thing that happens in hardcore shows when somebody decides to take it upon themselves to actively hunt people who are not participating in the pits. So they'll go around the edge of the pit, they'll look for somebody that's an innocent bystander and intentionally punch them, kick them, incite some kind of violence. There are people who argue in favor of this as being part of the experience. I vehemently disagree with that. I think crowd killing is absolutely unacceptable. Nobody is required to be a part of the pit when you go to a show. Like, if you want to go and stand on the outside and stand in the back, stand along the wall, and just
Yeah.
experience the hardcore show, that's your right. You are not opening yourself up to violence, in my opinion, and there's no reason to go after people like that. So, all of these things personally have never been. I've been in every kind of pit. Well, not the wall of death, like as I said, but I mean, I've been in so many different kinds of pits, and
You were at the kind of shows where a wall of death could have broken out, potentially.
sure, sure. And when I was in my teens, I would actively partake and I would enjoy that experience of just letting loose, there's just an energy and I never hurt anybody that I'm aware of, but I've been in these kind of pits, so I've experienced it, but like I find myself now like I've lost any appeal to be a part of that anymore. It's just
Yeah.
not my thing. I like to go to shows to experience the band and the music. I like seeing like again the Turnstile shows, especially like just watching the stage dives and all that is really fun to me to see. But see these spin kicks and people getting punched in the face and things like that. It's the violence aspect of it that I have really like just grown out of favor with as I've gotten older.
Yeah, no, I've got no time for it. I don't mind being in an old school pit or in an old school crowd where some people are bumping into each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe the crowd's pushing and moving a little bit. That doesn't bother me. In fact, he was probably 13 or 14 at the time. I took my son to Spanish love songs, and because it's Cleveland and because it was Mayhall's, it got a little Chevy there in the pit, and his eyes, he was totally freaked out in the first minute, and then you just kind of normalize it. You get used to it, and everybody's there to scream the words back at the singer, and it's kind of fun and whatever else. But no, the pure violence of the violent pits, I've long since disagreed and didn't like that. And I do have a story. When I was in college in Boston, and I was a big fan of a Brooklyn progressive metal jazz fusion hardcore band called Candiria, part of the Brooklyn hardcore scene, and I was not mixing it up. I wasn't in the crowd. I was standing. This was a weird club that also had like Euro dance at night, and but they hosted shows during the afternoon. So this was like a Saturday afternoon show or whatever. And I'm standing in the back up a couple of steps, like on a slightly elevated platform in the back of the room. And at the time I wore glasses with the
Mm.
metal frames,
Yep.
and I caught a spinning back fist right to the bridge of my nose,
Mm.
broke my glasses, put a giant cut in the middle of my nose between my eyes, and I was bleeding down my face. And it was just so shocking and uncalled for, especially at that zone of the crowd. Like, yes, I was at that kind of show, but I was so far out of that zone. It was completely uncalled for. And that's I think
Yep.
that's what you and I are talking about. It's like you need to be a volunteer to be involved in that kind of a that part of the show and that part of the pit. But some people
Right.
just think that nope, I'm here, you're fair game.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I got hit on purpose, but there's no reason that that move needed to take place anywhere near the back of the room on an elevated platform that far away from the stage in the pit while I was trying to enjoy Candiria.
Yeah.
But that's the worst thing that ever happened to me. But to your point as well, and this kind of goes into our age and our station in life at this point. It's like I've had three knee surgeries and two neck surgeries, and like I'm just trying to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
I want to be able to hang out with my kids. I'd prefer not to go to a hospital or incur any injuries that require surgery. The worst part of getting hit with a spin kick is probably when you hit the ground, because if your head hits the ground, something really bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I hate to be the really old man talking about the real world implications of even pretend fighting, but like they are
Mhm.
real. In my real life I sell insurance, so I deal
Yeah.
with liability all day long, and so yeah,
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
not here for it.
if these are things that if they happened outside the doors of the venue, they're assault. But because
Yeah.
they happen inside the doors, it's considered, well, that's part of the scene and part of the show. And I'm not here to like take away anybody's fun. Like I know that
No.
there's like a certain rite of passage.
You know what? I am. I'm here to take away your fun if you think hitting somebody
Yeah.
with a spinning back fist is a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, it is true, but like, I sort of get the argument that, it's a rite of passage and
Yeah.
you kind of go through it. But like, I mean, God bless like the people who do it into their 40s, and there are people who do it, but I just can't do it anymore. I just And like no that like I don't have the desire. Like I don't have the anger anymore to want to unleash that on somebody. And if I kicked or punched somebody, I would feel so bad about it. Like so bad. Like I just don't need to do that. I don't need to go around swinging my arms in the air and kicking and punching. Like it's just not how I express myself at this stage in life. Like I said, I'm there for the music these days, especially. But yeah, it was interesting. We'll see if I'll be curious to see if they talk about it on the next Hard Lore episode. I was looking to see. I hadn't seen anything yet from Colin acknowledging it at all on social media, and he's posted other things too. So I'm guessing there was nothing bad that came out of it because again, I'm probably to most people there, they were it was just well, that's just what happens kind of thing.
Yeah. So one of the topics that you and I have talked about a lot this year has been the continuing cancellation of music festivals. One niche website that talks only about music festivals claims the count is up to 40 festivals that have been canceled in 2025 that previously ran. You and I talked about it with the Pitchfork Festival, but now one of the other things that people are talking about, in addition to fans financing their tickets, which was a story a couple weeks ago, probably also along with Klarna and some of those buy now
Mm,
pay later, where people are buying burritos and takeout with those gimmicks. People are starting to change their purchasing habits, where a lot of promoters are starting to really sweat their show bookings because fans are buying tickets later and later and later, where a festival would sell out or have 80 or 90% of their tickets sold months and months ahead of time. Now it could be 50, maybe 60%, and that last 20 to 30% where the festivals make their money or not, they're kind of left waiting, and I think that's probably contributed to the spate of cancellations. And it especially occurred to me when, as much as I loved the Pearl Jam show and I was happy to go and I was happy to pay the money that I paid, even though it was a lot, the amount of money I paid for my seat to go see Pearl Jam in one night is not very far off from what I paid for VIP at a 2-day festival in Arizona, not including travel, of course, but the actual
right.
ticket cost. Pearl Jam's not alone. Last year it was Taylor Swift. This year, if you glance, not that I'm going to go, but if you glance at the Morgan Wallen ticket prices, it's 5, 6, 700 and up,
Wow.
and people are paying it for football stadiums to see Morgan Wallen, where that $600 or $700 could have gone to a 2 or a 3-day general admission pass to a festival to see maybe 100 artists or 50 artists or whatever.
Hmm.
um and so it's just, I don't know if you have anything to add. I know I just kind of unleashed this one on you, but it's a bit surprising to me to continually see how this washes out.
Yeah, I think it's the only thing I'll just add is just that this continues to be something that we've talked about almost from I mean, I feel like we touched on this in one of the very, very, very first episodes we ever did. And that's this idea that, again, post COVID, there was such a hunger for live shows on both sides. The artists were dying to do it, and the fans were dying to go to shows, and the ticket prices, got inflated coming out of that to begin with. Then we've had 4 years of runaway inflation in general in society. And as that happens, I think as people got concerts out of their system a little bit, like, they went to shows, they went to festivals, they came, they saw, they conquered, and then it was like, do I really want to spend $700 to go to this show? Like all of a sudden you hit that point where you're like, wait, maybe I don't want to spend my money on this. And I do think the installment aspect of this and the financing aspect of it is kind of funny. I stumbled on a thing, like, it was, like, some masterclass course on video editing. I wasn't gonna take it, but I'm always interested on what people charge for these, like, online master classes, and it was $1,500. It's like, "Oh, but we have Klarna you can use to finance it," and you just like, so many things everywhere. You just finance damn near anything these days, it seems like.
Well, and what happens to some people is they use Klarna 8, 9 times in a month, and all of a sudden, for 6, 8, 10 months later, they're still paying on a
Yeah.
bad month of impulse buys.
Yeah, when you see that, "Oh, it's just $20 a month," like, that's not that bad. Alright, I'll do that. Then the next, "That's only $10. Okay, cool." And then, "It's only $10. Cool." Well, guess what? You're already at $40 a month, like, so there is a, I guess not multiplicative, additive, quality to these where they get
Yeah.
you. But yeah, but it's just funny, like, the thought, like, I've never financed a concert ticket in my life, but, that's kind of just an interesting, concept to me.
Yeah, well, and I think all of us probably use credit cards, but
Yeah,
I've long since been the guy who pays off his credit card every month. So,
right. I don't
and I
I
know
know
I'm kind of
it's
fortunate to be
stupid
in
that
that position.
I realize that, like, as you said, credit cards, I'm like, "Oh, yeah," in my head, I don't think of that as financing, but it
Well, it
can
all
be.
depends on how you use it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
All right, enough of the old man financial wisdom. Let's talk about some new music. Let's start with The World is a Beautiful Place released a new song. I'm just going to bring it up. So
Beware the centrist?
Beware the Centrists, which, was notable because it is maybe the most straight ahead hardcore song The World is a
Yeah,
Beautiful Place and I Am No Longer Afraid to Die has ever done. Katie is screaming on it, which I
yeah.
don't think we've ever heard Katie
I
scream
don't think
before.
so.
And it was interesting because the band posted kind of in the aftermath, they were saying, we're always wary of this and they tell you never to read the comments, but people seem to really love this one, and the comments are out, and there a lot of them are funny because nobody really expected this from this band, but I don't
Yeah.
think anybody's upset about it. It's like this band can kind of almost do whatever it wants as long as it doesn't suck.
Because I relate everything to foxing now in my life.
Yeah.
This to me, this feels,
Hell 99.
yeah, this feels a little bit like when I first heard Hell 99, where you're just like, "Oh my god, like, I didn't realize this band was capable of doing this." Like, you already liked the band, but like, "Oh, okay, we're doing something different here." But no, they, like, they are in spurts, heavy and aggressive. They definitely can be this, but like,
Sure.
what you usually expect is these, like, longer, more stretched out songs that takes you a while to get there. This being just straight, what is it, 3 minutes, 4 minutes,
Yeah.
just straight aggression. Like, it feels like an emo punk song. Like, and I thought it was a really good song. Like, I was like, not just the novelty of it, like, the
Yeah.
novelty catches you first, but then on multiple listens, you're like, well, this is actually like a really good song in and of itself. Like, it doesn't need any qualifiers. Like, it's not a good song for The World is a Beautiful Place. Like, I think it's just a straightforward good song. Like, I would love to hear give me an EP of this, or a whole album. Like, I would be excited to hear that.
Yeah, I would miss the long drawn out melodic version of the band, but as a
Oh
change
yeah,
of pace, I'm here for it.
I don't want it forever, but I
Yeah.
just think it would be, if they could do a whole, or even use some of the more fleshed out parts as like interludes in between these. Like, do almost like an inverse kind of thing where the shorter songs are sort of the monoliths, and the use the more ethereal parts as the bridges between them.
It's also interesting because I wonder what this band is doing. They released two singles in 2024. This is their
Yeah.
first single of 2025. We talked about Illusory Walls from 2021. They haven't had a proper new album since 2021.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just going to singles now and they're
I
just going
hope
to release
not.
a song at a time like Thursday.
Yeah. I hope not.
Me too.
I'm still an album guy.
I
I'll
know.
always will be,
We're going to die as the last two album guys in the world, I think.
for sure. I don't even, but like, you joke, but like, it's really like, well, I was gonna say, like, even like seeing, like, you know Def Heaven still clearly believes in the full album experience. I was going to mention
Cloud
Turnstile,
Nothings.
but then I realized, like, but wait, Turnstile, Brendan Yates is 35 years old. Like, he's close to 40 already. They are
Yeah.
not, people think that's a young band. They are not a young band. Like,
No.
these are veterans of the scene. Like, they have been around, not just in Turnstile, but going back to Trapped Under Ice. Like, these guys have been around for a long time.
But it's also interesting because they earned the biggest amount of equity in their career. And it
yeah,
sure appears like they've created one hell of a long, drawn out, cohesive album. And we'll
yeah,
find out.
yeah. And so,
Yeah.
albums are not going away anytime
No.
soon, but, you do start to see some of these bands where you're like, man, like, you guys have just been doing a lot of one-off things. Like, it'd be nice to know what's actually going on. I'm always curious too, even just like the dynamics of that inside of a band. Like, what are their discussions like when they do things like this? Like, are they talking about an album? Like, do they feel like this was just so urgent of what they wanted to say with this song that it couldn't be held for an album? Or does it not fit the concept of what they're doing for? I don't know. Like, we just have
And here's
no
what I
idea.
end up thinking, because a band like The World is a Beautiful Place is a certain middle class level band where I'm not sure that any of them can only do music full time or not. And
Yeah.
there's six of them. And so to get six of them all in one place to do a proper full record might be financially really hard. I don't know,
Yeah, no, that's certainly
but
a
I'm
good point.
speculating.
Yeah, but, like, there's just always, I don't know, like, you always have to think about that kind of thing, especially right now because the music industry is so upside down.
Yeah. All right, let's move on because I don't have that much more time before I go see Akron City Football Club play some soccer tonight. The Kills Birds EP, it's called Crave. This was like a red alert recommendation from me to you. It came out April 11th. I discovered it in the last 4 or 5 days. The minute I heard it, I was absolutely in love with it, and I was like, this is grunge in the modern era without being nostalgic. This is just current, vital, new grunge, female vocals, and I was just blown away. I heard Behind, Madison, and Hollow, which are three of my favorite songs on the thing. It's got 5 songs total, and I really love this whole EP. I'm not sure you loved it quite as much as I did.
Well, for starters, like, you couldn't have picked a worse time to send me a
Fair.
recommendation. I was busy with doing some family stuff. I wasn't at home and I wasn't feeling great. So I didn't have a chance to give it really a good, proper listen when you first sent it to me. It took me a while to really sit down and give it the listen that it deserves. I will say, like, I really do like this a lot. There's not a bad song on it. The songwriting is there, but there's something about the production on this that I actually don't like.
Wow.
To me, the production, and I know nothing about this band, so I could be way off base here, but the production feels a little Hollywood rock to me, a little bit like LA scene, which is not typically
They are from L.
okay. I mean, it's not typically my style of rock when you get that produced sheen to it that I hear on this. And I don't know, is this the first thing they've ever put out?
It's a good
I I,
question.
I
I don't
didn't
really
even
even
look.
know.
I'm a little skeptical when something sounds this good and I
You
don't
think
know
they're an
anything
industry
about them.
plant?
I'm not going to use industry plants, but I'm just skeptical that maybe they've got some kind of backing behind them. That
Their
doesn't
first
necessarily have to be a
first full
bad thing.
record was 2019.
Oh, okay. So they've been around the block a bit.
And they have a song with over 1 million streams, so
Okay.
I just never heard of them.
Yeah, no. And I like I said, I haven't had a chance to really dive in and see anything. But I will say, like, I especially love for me it's the first 2 tracks on this. Pyre
Yeah.
is the second one. The first one is it Becoming? Is that the first song? Do you have
It's Behind, not Becoming.
Behind?
I did the
Okay.
same thing. Yeah.
I really, really like both of those songs. The vocal melodies she comes up with on this are like my favorite kind of vocal melodies when you think you know where a vocal melody is going and they totally surprise you and sing a different melody than what you were expecting. I love it when singers can do that. And
The rawness of the vocals too,
yeah,
where you can tell she's a phenomenal singer, but she's willing to get a little dirty with
yeah,
some crunch in her vocal tone. I just that purposeful sloppiness or
Yeah.
purposeful grit I
Yeah.
really enjoyed.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like you're spot on in like in saying this as like a grunge influence. Like this does all the things that you want in grunge music, and I don't think it's reductive in any way. I think they're doing it in a novel approach, like you said. So I like it. I just need more time to digest the. Like I said, some about the production. It's just a little too. The production is a little too clean for me. Like it just
Yeah.
sounds a little too good almost, which I know sounds ridiculous to say. I realize how stupid this sounds to say, like, and we talked about this a little bit with like Pearl Jam's. I mean, we haven't talked about Pearl Jam yet this episode with Dark Matter. Like that was a big pushback that they got was people didn't like the sheen of the production of that, and you and I
Right.
waved that aside and could forgive it. But like I also have 30 years of context with Pearl Jam that it's easier for me to do that. So when I hear the first thing I hear from a band is something that sounds like this, I get a little skeptical. The little antennas were going up on
I'm gonna
my.
have to go back and listen to their 20.
Yeah, I'd be curious too to see what that sounds like. But I have no problem recommending this to people. Like
Yeah.
definitely you should go check it out. Like it's very good and the songs are there. The songwriting is there. Like these are very
Yeah.
interesting songs.
All right. So speaking of not having too much production sheen, we're gonna finish with Home is Where, their new album, Hunting Season. I gotta start off by saying I was maybe a little bit muted in my anticipation for this one. I absolutely fell in love with this band with I Became Birds, the first EP, and I was not quite as high on their last offering,
The Wailer.
The Wailer. It's good, but I didn't love it per se. And something about when I saw this band live, the way that they were so defensive on stage and almost like attacking the audience really rubbed me the wrong way. So I kind of, as much as I enjoy their music and I just something about the vibe of this band just felt a little bit off to me. So I maybe wasn't really looking forward to this. I think this record is really good. I don't know if I love it, but I can tell by listening to it, it's very good. It's one of those situations where you and I talk about, we can tell when something's really good, and then our mileage may vary. I haven't figured
Yeah.
out how much mileage I'm going to get out of this one personally, but it's really good.
So it's funny because I echo a lot of the things you were saying. Like, I also absolutely loved that first EP, I Became Birds. I was just blown away by it. And I was very excited for a proper album. But then, like, something about their persona on Twitter. And I don't know. I too found like the defensiveness, like even through the Twitter persona, a little bit like, I don't know, like just rubbing me the wrong way a little bit. And I found myself like, and then I heard like the first single from the Wailer, and I was like, I don't know about this. Like maybe I'm just out on this band. Maybe. And then I heard the Wailer, and I fell in love with it, and it became one of my
Yeah.
absolute favorite albums of that year. Like I adore that album. And then time goes on, and again, same thing kind of happened. I found myself like not feeling super excited for a new Home Is Where album for some reason. First couple singles didn't immediately grab me listening to them as singles. So when the album came out, Hunting Season, I was like, well, I mean, I got to give it a listen, right? Like I got to at least check it
Yeah.
out. And I just loved it. I love this album. This band is just, I said to you, this band is an absolute force of nature. They're an undeniable force of nature. They just make good songs. And in so many ways, I view these guys as a spiritual successor to Titus Andronicus. Like to me, what Titus is to punk is sort of like what Home Is Where is to emo. And it kind of works because both of these singers are very thin skinned. They're very self conscious about the way people perceive their music. And they care very much about how they like whether they are getting the recognition that they think they deserve or not. That's very similar between the two. They are both acquired tastes as vocalists. They are not
Sure.
naturally good singers. And, they both bring a sort of soulfulness, this earthiness. Like, I
They
don't
write
remember where.
with very interesting melody,
Yeah.
and Home is Where is willing to get aggressive, and I think the contrast between the almost southern rock tinged emo to the more aggressive screaming style is just really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, but they do rely on some of their gimmicks, the really bad harmonica
Yeah.
and playing the saw. I don't know if
Yeah.
you recognize the whittling sound of
Oh,
the
yeah.
saw.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, all right, how many times are we gonna go back to that well again? Okay, I guess it's still working though.
Yeah,
The songs are still good.
it does give them a bit of a, like, not so much like, I don't know if it was Stephen Hayden or Ian Cohn, but one of them, like, said, like, it gives them less of an emo edge and more of a, like, folk punk kind of feel,
Yeah.
and, like, I do feel that they are definitely more in that lane, especially with this album, and especially, like, I don't like, this is a very long album. I think it's almost an hour long, if I remember correctly.
55 minutes and 17 seconds, including a 10-minute long song.
So yeah, so pretty close to it. So this is not light listening, this is not easy listening, but man, like when these guys are firing though, they are just so good. Like these songs are just so good. They're such interesting writers, and I just, just as I did with Patrick Stickles, like there's things that I like about him and things I don't. I've kind of just grown to appreciate him for who he is. And I think I'm kind of turning that corner a little bit with Home Is Where's vocalist, who I forget what her name is. I
Yeah, I
totally
don't
drawn a
know.
blank, but
B. McDonald.
yeah. And so yeah, I don't know. Like I've just kind of come to appreciate them for what they are. And I think I like Titus way more. Like I'm a huge Titus Andronicus fan, but I think Home Is Where is just a band that, like, I'm always going to be interested when they have a new album, and always going to be kind of curious to see what they're up to. They've kind of earned
Yeah.
that street cred with me. They've built that up.
Well, I think you and I became aware of I Became Birds because Ian Cohen reviewed it for Pitchfork and gave it an 8.0.
That's right.
And so that's where we'll leave this one too. You noted that Pitchfork had not reviewed this record, at
Yeah.
least as we're talking about it, which is kind of wild considering the last review. Well, I don't know what they gave the Whaler,
It was a
but
8 something. I think it was 8.1. I think it was better than I Became Birds.
8.1.
Yeah.
Look at you.
So it's weird to give a band 2 8s for their first two albums and then just ignore the third one
Maybe they just haven't
completely.
gotten used to it, gotten to it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I mean, usually they're a little bit more on top. I don't know what the deal is, like, to be honest. Like, I don't feel like there's been much hype for this album. Like, I have not heard, other than IndieCast talking about it. Like, I don't recall Stereo Gum giving it a lot of love. Like, I don't,
And only one of the songs has over 100,000 streams on Spotify at this point too. So
yeah,
it might just not have caught on yet, or maybe it's not going to catch on. But it's really good.
yeah,
It's really well worth a listen.
yeah.
I don't think it captures all the magic of I Became Birds, but
Like, I don't like this more than the Wailer. Like, I like the Wailer quite a bit more than this album, but to me, this is still a worthy album of discussion. And it's just been a little disappointing that, it just seems like this isn't getting much
yeah.
attention, and I feel like it deserves a little bit more attention than it's getting.
Yep. All right. Well, it's one of our shorter episodes, but we took a week off and we got things to do, and we still at 56 minutes. So
Yeah, not bad.
all right. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening and checking us out on YouTube. You know the places to find us, albumofrecord.com. Give us your email, sign up. We will not sell your data. We'll just let you know when we have new stuff coming out. And until next time, we'll talk to you. It's been the Album of Record podcast.